Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment of our program brought to you by Calhoun's. If you've got a hankering for the best barbecue around, well, there's always a Calhoun's near you in East Tennessee, on the river, Pellissippi Parkway, at Turkey Creek, Bearden Hill, Lenoir City, Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge, Maryville, and now Oak Ridge. Calhoun's Barbecue, always nearby. Go ahead and check out a Calhoun's today, as a matter of fact. Okay, we want to introduce the next round of panelists. We got Bob's hanging around. He wouldn't leave. We got Daniel Hood, VFL. We got Mike Griffith, TVFL, TV for Life. And we got down there Shazan Bradley, VFL. Shazan, I'm going to start with you. A few weeks ago on this show, you said Jalen Hurd's not a running back. Then you qualified it and said not a running back in this system. I would still argue that if you come within 400 yards of the school record, you ain't bad. But I'm going to give you your time to gloat here. You said he's not a running back in this system. Your thoughts on him leaving it with 4 games to go to become possibly a wide receiver, it's not happening, or tight end somewhere else?
Oh, it's almost like you have a 12-round back scheduled in the 8th round to get knocked out. I mean, I'm concerned about Jalen Hurd in terms of his health. He just left. I mean, he took a beating. He's 6'4", hits a lot of target. That's a lot of beating he was taking, a lot of punishment. The line, if you notice, if the line is getting pushed, Jalen runs well, but with no push, he doesn't run well. He's not able to wiggle and jiggle and go side to side. He can't get started quick enough. And that's what I was saying. He's not a running back, but with the right push in the right situations, he's durable. So
I thought he looked more like a running back last year, which does get back to the offensive line a little bit. When you look at what he's doing, it's hard to agree with it. A guy leaving. I do think Shazan's right. You do wonder about him personally as a guy, because here's a guy who came in and was determined to be an NFL draft pick. He had his whole life planned out, and then it's kind of changed here in a weird situation. And it seemed he was running hard for most of the year. Then something happened at the Georgia game. He gets clocked walking into the end zone. Somebody barks at him maybe. Later he gets a concussion. Then they say it's not a concussion. He's back in there. His stepfather's kind of gone both ways on it. And he wasn't the same after that. So you do have to be, I think you're right. I think, let's think about the young man in addition to just the football team, because that's what he is.
Every time I say Jalen Hurd, he always signed autographs. He's always polite to the fans. He was always happy about it. He had a smile on his face. He was one of the great, when I saw, he was one of the best young men that I've ever saw in my life. And I'm a little concerned about it.
All right, well, I'll tell you what, let's move on. And by the way, most NFL scouts, looked at him as a 2nd to 4th round running back pick. So the idea of him quitting, he's apparently the only thing he could be looking for is trying to shorten or trying to lengthen his pro career. Short shelf life as a running back in the NFL. 3 years is the average career. So the only thing you can think of is he's looking at trying to have a longer career. He came in to UT with an injured shoulder. He said that it's since high school. Maybe that's what he's thinking, but they're going to put him back to running back in the pros if that's where he's going. All right. If Tennessee wasn't going to change Jalen Hurd's position, and with the success you had last year, I think Butch Jones would have been crazy to say, okay, we're moving you to tight end this year. However, and we've talked about this on this show all season long, you had opportunities to showcase him in other ways. I want to go to the YP board just for a second, the Benedict Construction big board. Let me give you some options. Let me show you something. Let's say your backfield is Jalen Hurd and Alvin Kamara. All right, now all of a sudden you move Kamara out to the slot, but you leave Hurd in as your lone back. All right, it's still Hurd and Kamara in there, but the next play, Hurd moves out to tight end, and Kamara stays in as your lone back. Here's another one. Hurd and Kelly are in your backfield. Kamara is starting in the slot. Then Hurd moves out to receiver. My point is, there were about 1,000 different combinations you could have played with these guys. And Will Overstreet beat the drum. He's not here today, but he's beating that drum all year. I don't know that they've necessarily taken advantage of all their weaponry as much as they could have. Mike and Daniel, I'll start with you. Your thoughts on, you're not going to move Jalen Hurd's position here at Tennessee, but you could have used him in other ways. You could have used Kelly and Kamara and some of these other guys in other ways, in my opinion. Thoughts?
I think you definitely can, but I think the problem you run into on that case is now I'm changing my offense because of one guy's attitude. And I think if you're a head coach, you're going down a slippery slope, and I can honestly say I've seen that with the head coach before, and it causes a bunch of issues on that. And I think at some point, you can be a great player and be fueled by arrogance and fear. But if you want to be the great player, you want to be the greatest of all time, you got to realize it's never really about you. It was about the team. And if you care about that, like a Peyton Manning, like a Tom Brady, the list goes on and on. you don't have any of these worries coming out. You know, you're not worried about the NFL because it'll take care of itself.
See, I look at it though, rather than doing this to satisfy Hurd, I think that's just a happy byproduct. If I'm the offensive coordinator over there, or if I'm the head coach who's sitting there making the game plan with the offensive coordinator, I'm looking at, look at these wonderful toys. Look at what I can do. I can play with all these things.
but
And instead it's, no, Hurd's here. He's our bell cow.
Well, here's the problem, and Daniel's right. I mean, first of all, I think some changes were made for Jalen Hurd, and there was a sense of entitlement. And I think that also hurt him in the eyes of his teammates. Teammates don't like that. Hey, if Jalen doesn't have to do it, why do I have to do it? I think there was some of that to keep Jalen around. I think Jalen might have abused that, like a lot of young people would. What do you mean I don't have to come to practice if my leg's sore? We trust you to manage your body. But to your point about using guys like that, John, you can't design certain plays and sets for one guy, because if that one guy gets hurt, there's 10 guys that have just wasted 100 reps on that one play.
That's why I just pointed out it's 3 guys.
But they're not. They're really not interchangeable. I don't think they really are interchangeable.
You don't see running backs motion to the slot?
6'4",
You don't see-
240-pound
okay.
guy on the roster that can run like Jalen Hurd.
Well,
That's my thought.
Bob, your thoughts? Do you think that they could have used this weaponry a little bit differently, or do you
Yeah, I
like them
got to
going
disagree
in and saying, no, we only
100%
do
with
one thing?
Mike. I mean, you got a 6'4",
Feels good, doesn't it?
240-pound running back, but he's still a running back. And he wasn't a fullback. These other guys aren't fullbacks. He was a running back. And yes, even though body styles were different, a lot of things were different, they should have been interchangeable. And they should have gotten, I mean, I now question, okay, we talked about, why didn't Kamara get more touches? Well, why didn't John Kelly get more touches too? I mean, there's only one ball, but still.
But here's one thing I would point to. All right, by the logic of we do what we do and we're not going to move things around, then why was Josh Malone in the backfield on that long touchdown pass against Florida? That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about we're going to change everything to make Jalen Hurd happy.
Right.
No, you most definitely do not do that. But if I'm an offensive coordinator, I've got guys who I can move around and use in different ways. I want to do that to attack the defense.
Well, I asked the board about that. I asked him about, how hard is it to tweak the offense when you've got so many different guys out? And he said, well, there's some things you can do, but you can only do them with one guy.
Right.
And that's specifically where that philosophy was derived from. And I get that. You want to have a base offense. You can mess around a little bit, but not too much, right?
All right,
But
15 seconds.
I do think that your best set, though, is, of course, the first one there where you got Hurd and Kamara in at the same time. I don't see Hurd as a receiver with breakaway speed or moves, but I think that's one that should have had more plays.
But if once every 2 weeks Hurd walks out to wide receiver, that's something else the defensive coordinator is going to be sitting there, wait a second, who's on him? If you move Kamara out, you're going to have, who comes up and gets Kamara? Linebacker? Okay, then there's where you attack. Shazan, your thoughts?
It's just tight. I don't know. I don't have any thoughts. He was a 5-star. And how many promises did they promise him? What did they promise him to get him here? Because we wasn't winning at all. Did they promise him he was going to be a tight end later on? Did they promise him they was going to put a fullback in front of him? I don't know. Yeah. But for some reason, it fell through.
All right. When we come back, did Butch Jones say something bad yesterday? People were reading lips. He'd have been better off doing that on the sideline. We'll talk about, is he too thin-skinned or some of us too thin-skinned? Come on back to Sports.